Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Mind Matters. This is our episode number six on this podcast series. My name is Tanuj Sharma. I'm the co founder and CEO of Kana Health. I'm excited to have the incredible Nidhi call with me today. She's a licensed therapist and executive coach based here in Bay Area. She's joining us today to talk about an incredibly hot and relevant topic, the tech industry layoffs. Most of us in the tech industry are dealing with it right now in terms of our personal and professional network. And we will talk about how therapists can support those who are worried about potential layoffs, as well as those who are ready to navigate the emotional and mental challenges of being currently laid off. And all along the way, we'll share a few practical tips as well to navigate the situation you may be in. Nidhi, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thanuj, for having me. I'm excited to dive into this conversation as so many people, I'm sure you know as well as I know, are navigating the uncertainty of layoffs and or are already have been impacted by them. So I really hope that our discussion today is helpful.
So let's start with the basics, right? Layoffs do hit hard, Nidhi. We all know that, and it hits you emotionally as well as mentally. Many people feel lost. They feel shy about it. Then, and some of them are even blindsided. Let's start by talking about the emotional impact layoffs can have on individuals. And as a therapist, what are some of those common emotions or struggles you see in clients who are worried about or going through a layoff right now?
Yeah, Thanuj, layoffs can hit people in a lot of different ways. But generally, I do see a mix of anxiety, fear, and even shame. And many people worry about financial instability, or they feel like they've lost a sense of purpose because work was such a big part of their identity. And so there can be feelings of inadequacy or depression, anxiety, particularly if the layoff feels personal or tied to performance. On the flip side, some people feel a sense of relief, especially if they've been unhappy or stuck in their role. And so they may actually see it as a chance for change. That's why it's important for therapists to validate all the different emotions a person may be experiencing after a layoff, whether it's panic, whether it's self doubt, or even a sense of freedom.
Yeah. And I just love what you said about relief. I mean, sometimes people don't realize that parting ways with a job that wasn't right for them can really open up their, opportunities, their perspective, and so many things in their mindset. For immigrants, layoff doesn't just mean job loss. It's a visa, uncertainty, relocation stress, legal hurdles. So, how do you approach this topic with those people who might be worried about consequences of a job loss and the impact of that on their immigration status?
Yeah, that's a very real and significant concern for many people, particularly those that are on work visas such as H-1B or any other temporary employment based visa. So, for clients that are facing this fear, the first step is acknowledging the stress and the uncertainty that they're feeling. It's crucial to validate those fears because immigration related stress is real and it's often compounded by the loss of income and the added pressure of navigating the complexities of immigration law. And so I do remind my clients that while their concerns are valid, they are not alone, and that there are legal resources and advisors who specialize in immigration law and can provide clarity on the steps that they need to take. I also emphasize that even if someone is facing a layoff, there may be time to find a new position or to explore visa options that can minimize the impact on their status. Because in the moment that they're either experiencing the layoff or about to go through one, they're often overwhelmed with emotions and not able to think rationally about the situation. And so sometimes even reminding them that there are these options out there can provide some hope. But on the emotional side, I help clients manage the anxiety and the uncertainty that comes with this fear. So, many of the clients experience overwhelming worry about what might happen to their visa or their ability to stay in the country and their future prospects. So, as therapists, we often help clients work through this by focusing on mindfulness and stress management techniques so that they don't get paralyzed by fear and they're still able to take the actionable steps that they need to work through this challenging situation.
So it sounds like maybe being prepared and being organized is the key to deal with this situation, especially with immigration and visa status. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
And the resource that's available to you. Sometimes the resources are just other people that you may know in your network who've already navigated such a challenging situation, or who may actually know somebody else who's been through it and can give you some tips and advice.
Absolutely. So it sounds like it's all about managing the fear without ignoring it, while also providing clients with a tool to make informed decisions. How do you suggest these clients and these people balance the emotional distress of potential immigration issues with the practical steps they need to take to protect their visa status?
Yeah, well, you're right, Thanuj, that the fear can feel very overwhelming and it can actually take over every aspect of someone's life if they let it. So, first, we focus on the immediate emotional experiencing. So, that means like validating the anxiety, giving the person the space to process the fear. And yes, therapists can do this, but of course, friends and family members can allow for this as well, where the core component here is that processing the emotions, basically purging them, talking about them, can really help reduce the intensity of the emotions.
Hmm.
It can help reduce the feelings of isolation and shame. And so that's a core component of getting through such a challenging time, is being able to talk about it and being able to talk about the impact. And then once people have been able to talk through those emotions and the fearful thoughts, then we can focus on the practical steps they can take, like finding legal guidance or finding another job. And then I also work with clients on reframing their thoughts. So, for example, instead of thinking, if I lose my job, I lose my visa, my whole life will be uprooted, I'll help them to shift to, while this is a challenge, there are legal professionals and job opportunities available, and I can take steps toward finding solutions. Or I might help them to reframe that thought into, while this is a challenge, I have overcome challenges in the past, and I'll continue to grow and learn from this one. And so, this cognitive reframing, as we call it, helps manage the overwhelming emotions, and it empowers people to take action without feeling consumed by fear. And so, really, it's all about balance, allowing people to express themselves, to express the anxiety and distress, because it is such a natural response. But then moving into a more grounded, solution focused approach. And then I do usually suggest people set aside specific time to deal with the logistical aspects, like meeting with an immigration lawyer or updating their resume or networking, because it can be actually very emotionally taxing to do all the things that you might need to do to secure yourself another job. So I just recommend making sure that you're finding time to practice self-care, exercise, meditation, anything that you need to replenish your energy as you're going through some of the steps that you need to take.
Wonderful. And that's really the key, Nidhi. Fear really thrives on uncertainty. And for our audience, if you're in this position, here is the summary of a few practical tips which Nidhi just shared. First of all, get your paperwork in order. You need to know your visa details inside out. Second, you need to seek expert advice, especially from immigration lawyers. Do not fall for the rumors. Third, it's time to activate your network. Let your recruiters, your personal connection, your professional connection, let them know that you're looking out and you need help. Explore backup options like alternate visas, skill building, side projects, side consulting, which you can do. And most important of it all, take one step at a time, stay organized, because panicking in this situation will not help. Moving forward, Nidhi, so being proactive while also taking care of mental health seems key in these situations. Any final thought for therapists who are supporting clients who are also facing both job loss or, just the fear of immigration consequences?
Yeah, so my final advice would be to remind clients that their fear is understandable, but there are resources available, both legal and emotional. And as therapists, it's essential that we provide that emotional support, but also help our clients connect to the right professional resources, whether that is the immigration lawyer or a career counselor. And it's equally important to help clients reframe their experience as a challenging situation they can get through rather than a permanent or unmanageable one. Because there's a lot of uncertainty right now, but people are resilient and there are always ways to find solutions.
Hmm. All right, Nidhi. So, in terms of the conversation forward, let's switch gears a little bit. Before a layoff happens, clients often have a lot of anxiety about their job situation and worry about the possibility of what can happen next. How do therapists help those people who are dealing with that uncertainty about their job situation and the worst possibilities which could be, in the near future?
Yeah, that's a great question, Thanuj. When people are dealing with that uncertainty before a layoff happens, it's really about helping them manage the anxiety and the fear around the unknown. So first, I help them ground themselves in the present moment so they're not getting too overwhelmed by the what ifs. And that might be, what if I lose my job? What if I lose my house? What if this happens? What if that happens? A lot of future forecasting can happen when feeling fearful and anxious. So I might guide them in incorporating stress reducing practices like mindfulness or deep breathing to help them stay grounded. And then we focus on what they can control right now, whether that's updating their resume, improving their skills, or exploring new job opportunities. And I also do work with them on managing their thoughts, as I mentioned before, and reframing the situation so that they're not catastrophizing or assuming the worst. And then we'll talk about developing a sense of emotional resilience. And so I encourage clients to build their support network, whether that's family, friends, or even a professional community, because having that support makes it easier to handle the emotional ups and downs. And essentially, the goal is to help them focus less on the uncertainty, less on the future, and more on what they can do in this moment to take care of themselves, both emotionally and practically.
No, that's such a game changer, Nidhi. Taking back control before panic sets in.
Mhm.
And that is what will carry you through this difficult phase. And if you're worried about layoffs, here are again a few practical tips for you. Number one, start your job search early and quietly. Be ready before you need to be. Number two, upskill. Take online courses, certification, really complete the spectrum of skill sets which you need to have to perform your job effectively and efficiently. Network consistently. You should always be building relationships, not just for job leads, but for future as well. And finally, number four, use all resources. There are layoff assistance programs which are out there. Most of the employers do provide them. There are a ton of resources which are available on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably one of the best platforms you can use in this kind of a situation. And then there are career coaches as well who will help you navigate your path forward in terms of where you stand today and what kind of skills and things which you need to develop in your path forward. Nidhi, now let's talk about those people who have already been laid off. How do therapists help these individuals process the loss and help them move forward in their life and career?
Yeah. Well, so first and foremost, it's really important to create that safe, non judgmental space where the
Mm.
person can process their feelings. And I touched on that a little bit earlier because losing a job can feel like a deep personal loss. So we need to allow time for people to grieve that change. I like to help my clients acknowledge and express their emotions, whether that's sadness, anger, confusion, or even relief, because it's normal to feel all sorts of things. And validating those emotions is going to be a key part of the healing process. And then once they've had a chance to process the emotional impact, we begin to shift toward looking at practical steps to move forward. So that might include focusing on rebuilding their confidence, separating their self worth from their job title. That's a pretty big one. Setting new goals, or even exploring what they want in their next job, whether it's a better work life balance, or a career change, or a leadership opportunity. And as I mentioned earlier, we do work on reframing the situation. So, again, instead of feeling like this is the end and this is the worst thing that could happen, people start to see this as an opportunity for growth, whether it's learning new skills or discovering new career paths. And then while we're doing that in the therapy session, it's crucial that this, a core part of this also is going to be self-care. So, it's really easy to fall into negative thinking patterns, and helping people to maintain their mental and physical health through exercise, social support, and mindfulness really does help them to have a more balanced way of thinking in a challenging situation. Ultimately, really, it's about helping them find balance, allowing the space to grieve the loss, while also empowering them to take the small, manageable steps that they need to move to the next chapter.
No, that's such a compassionate approach, Nidhi. And I would also add from my own experience that it's important for people to avoid comparing themselves to others, especially on social media platforms like LinkedIn, where you may feel like everybody else has their careers completely sorted out and figured out, and I have no idea where I need to go from here on. I think we should just all focus on our own journey and progress rather than, feel any external pressure, because that will really help us maintain perspective and avoid any unnecessary stress, because comparing, your life path to somebody else's is just completely, waste of time and effort. Um,
Absolutely, Thanaj. I appreciate you actually mentioning that, because oftentimes everyone, including myself, falls prey into making those comparisons when we have such access to each other's lives. And I really think it's important for myself, for everyone, to remember that we only have access to what people are willing to share on social media. And so what you see is just a snapshot of that person's experience. We have actually no idea of the setbacks, the challenges, the personal experiences that people are going through. And so to make that comparison is really unfair when you don't have the full context and perspective. So I just like to remind people that part of the reason you don't want to make a comparison is you don't know the full picture. So it's not a fair comparison to make.
Absolutely. I mean, so many times we have heard the story of overnight success, which actually took 10 years.
Yeah.
Like nobody really knew the backstory of it. All right. So let's talk about the financial stress, which is a major part of the layoff equation, right? I mean, most of the people who go through it, that is the first thing which strikes in their mind. How do therapists address the concerns around financial anxiety, and which often accompanies in terms of this overall situation of somebody being about to be laid off or going through a layoff?
Yeah. Well, so financial anxiety can be one of the most overwhelming aspects of going through a layoff. And, I like to remind my clients that while we can't change their financial situation overnight, we can focus on practical steps to regain control. So I might encourage my clients to connect with a financial advisor or get a career coach to get a realistic picture of what their finances are and to understand their options. And we may also talk about ways to reduce financial stress, such as budgeting or cutting back on unnecessary expenses. And then on a psychological level, it's important to remind people that financial hardships don't define their worth or their future potential, and to remind them that they are navigating a temporary setback, and that they always will have the opportunity to rebuild.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's so important, right? I mean, if the finances are overwhelming you, here are some of the practical tips which we can share with you. Number one, assess your budget and prioritize your expenses. Focus on core essentials and cut all non-essentials out. Number two, if you have an option, apply for the unemployment benefits as well. Most employers do offer it. If you're eligible, use what's available. Number three, look for temporary income as well. There are a ton of platforms which have made freelancing and short-term gigs so much more easily available to almost everybody today. You should make use of those and look for generating some temporary income out of that.
Yeah. And actually, I want to just add one more thing is that what I have noticed is for some clients, there really is no financial hardship that is immediate or imminent. But that there's this scarcity mindset that they grew up with. And so that could be another component of what is driving the financial anxiety is this mindset that perhaps you inherited from your childhood experience of I don't have enough, I don't have enough. And that's why I would actually really encourage you to look at the hard numbers even to see that is it truly that you don't have enough and that you're going to be struggling, or is it because of this mindset that you grew up with that makes you believe in this alternate reality? Because the steps that you take for either of those situations is going to be different. One's going to involve budgeting, the other one's going to involve managing your anxiety around finances. And then I appreciate the tips that you shared, Thanuj. I think it's also important that as people are going through these challenges, especially when they're looking at the finances and budgeting, that they're also kind to themselves during this time because the stress can really take a toll on one's mental health. So it's crucial not only to focus on the numbers, but to also take care of your emotional well-being as you're navigating the situation.
Very well said, Nidhi. And that kind of takes us to the next segment, which is how do we help people build long-term resilience to navigate this situation? Because it will happen in your career and life again and again. And how do you deal with a series of these setbacks like multiple layoffs or going through ongoing job instability? Maybe what advice do you have for our audience today?
Yeah, well, I want to highlight that, setbacks can come in many different forms, whether it's a layoff or an impending layoff, or whether it's a health concern or a loss. There's a lot of setbacks that people experience or challenges people experience in life. And so, building resilience really comes from the everyday habits that we engage in. And it's all about developing emotional and practical coping strategies. So I emphasize the importance of self care, eating healthy, exercising, meditating, reconnecting with passions outside of work, like playing an instrument or taking a class, connecting with loved ones. All of these will help build long term resilience. The small acts that we engage in can really bring meaning and fulfillment that's not dependent on a person's work identity or the self-worth that's attached to their work identity. I also help my clients focus on developing a growth mindset. So to be able to see the challenges that they're facing as opportunities for growth and not failures, and even maybe not even as setbacks, because even setbacks can have a pretty negative connotation. So I encourage them to really reframe these challenges as being temporary, which helps ease the feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. And then we focus on identifying strengths, as everybody has strengths in their lives. So we do this maybe by identifying past successes, skills that they've gained over a period of time, their values and how they engage with their values. And that keeps them motivated during tough times. So a reminder is that resilience isn't about avoiding tough emotions or difficult situations. It's really about the ability to adapt and to bounce back from challenges that we experience.
Absolutely. Well said, Nidhi. And, for our audience, just to summarize, if you're looking for long-term career stability, here are a few things to keep in mind. One, like Nidhi said, adopt a growth mindset. Every challenge has something to learn from. Every challenge is an opportunity for you to bounce back. Number two, expand your skill set. Make yourself future proof and develop the builder mindset rather than just a manager mindset. Number three, you need to stay on top of your industry. You need to stay engaged. You need to stay on top of the knowledge curve. You got to be ahead in terms of what's happening, what are the latest trends, what skill sets, what core skills you need to develop to stay ahead of that curve.
Yeah, absolutely love the last two that you mentioned, Thanuj. It's essential to periodically review and update your skill set. Absolutely. So that you stay relevant. And then staying informed of industry trends is actually crucial as well. People, work in certain fields for a long period of time, but then they get complacent. And then they're caught off guard when such situations arise. So, keeping your skill set relevant and staying informed is going to be crucial.
Absolutely, Nidhi. And I believe this has been such a helpful and insightful conversation. Before we wrap up our podcast today, Nidhi, do you have any final advice for the people who are currently navigating or anticipating layoffs?
Yeah, well, for people who are navigating layoffs, my final piece of advice is to remember that layoffs are temporary. That's crucial. And that while they may feel incredibly tough to deal with, they don't define your worth. And you are so much more than your job. Then this is just one chapter in your story. And it may be hard right now, but this moment doesn't determine who you are or what you're capable of. You have the strength to move forward, to learn, and to grow from this experience. And then lastly, don't be afraid to ask for help, whether that's through therapy, financial advisors, career coaches, or friends, family members, your managers, whoever it might be. Please seek support because people are more than happy to help. You don't have to do it alone. And then for therapists who are supporting people who are impacted by layoffs, the key is to provide a compassionate, judgment free space for clients to process their emotions and to instill hope that the situation will get better because it will. It always does.
On that note, Nidhi, let me share one of the most iconic stories about resilience with our audience today. Steve Jobs was about 30-year-old when he was fired from Apple, the company he co-founded and co-created himself. He was devastated, but he was driven. He built Pixar and Next. Both were tremendous successes, leading to his return as Apple's CEO. With a fresh vision, he introduced the iPhone, iPod, and MacBook, proving that a setback can be a step up for greatness. And as he wrote it in his own words, getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to him. With that said, thank you so much, Nidhi, for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been an incredibly valuable conversation for both the therapist and the people who are navigating these difficult times today.
Thanks, Thanuj, and thank you for having this conversation with me as well. As we kind of talked about earlier, I think a lot of people are being impacted by the uncertainty of layoffs as well as navigating layoffs right now. So I do hope that people find today's discussion to be valuable and supportive, and to take at least one thing out of here, which is that you're not alone and that people are here willing and able to offer support. So thank you, Thanuj.
No, thank you, Nidhi, for sharing your insights today. For our audience, that's a wrap on today's episode. If you or someone you know is struggling with a layoff, remember you're not alone. You will get through this. Take help, talk to a therapist, lean on your network, and most importantly, stay open to the new possibilities. Until the next time, thanks everybody. Thank you, Nidhi. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Thanuj.